Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on the outcome of the Calgary Heritage by-election. But first, the BC Ports labor dispute.
We are rooting for a very quick end to this.
BC Port workers are expected to vote in the coming days on a tentative agreement that union leadership initially rejected, setting off a brief second strike last week before a Canada Industrial Relations Board ruled the job action illegal. And while work has since resumed, supply chains remain strained with nearly $11 billion in trade disrupted over the past few weeks. Joining us now to discuss that and more, Devin Dreeshen, Alberta's Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors. Minister Dreeshen, let's start on the BC Ports labor dispute. The Mayor of Vancouver, we heard there, he's hopeful of a resolution. How optimistic are you this tentative agreement will get the green light?
Well, we'll see what happens, obviously. There was a federal mediated agreement that was signed about a week ago. In a very interesting move, the port union actually didn't even take that agreement to their members to actually have a vote on. So they obviously shut it down themselves, the union leadership. So the union is now deciding to take this agreement to their members. And as you mentioned, we'll see on whether Thursday or Friday, that members will be able to vote. So I guess we'll see. But something that we are concerned as a provincial government is how the West is being treated compared to Quebec. In 2021, the Port of Montreal went on strike, and the federal government, within 1 day of strike action, called back to work legislation, introduced it in Parliament, and there's only 1 day of disrupted work in Montreal, in Quebec. But when you look at the West Coast ports, there's been many calls for the exact same treatment for Western Canada, but there was no recall of Parliament, there was no back to work legislation, and this has been lingering on since Canada Day. So a lot of frustration out in Western Canada about how the federal government has been treating this port strike to a very similar port strike that happened in Montreal 2 years ago.
Well, and there are some in the business community here in this province suggesting maybe port workers be included in essential service legislation. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think that's a great conversation to have in Ottawa, because when you look at the importance of our ports, on the West Coast, Vancouver is the #1 port, Prince Rupert is the #2 port in the entire country. And just from an Alberta standpoint, we have about $50 million a day worth of goods going in and out of the port. And although, if you look at, exporters, whether it's the forestry industry, agriculture, mining, oil and gas, of wanting to get products out to markets around the world, there's also, it hits here at home to just people getting their groceries with, apples and fruits and certain things coming into Alberta and the rest of Canada, essentially sitting in Vancouver and these West Coast ports rotting in refrigerated containers for weeks on end. So it's vitally important for Canadians, for the economy, as well as families, to make sure that when they go to a grocery store, they have a full stocked shelf to choose from.
Yeah, definitely. Many hoping this deal does get ratified. Okay, let's move on to your mandate letter. Priority 1, driving forward with Calgary's arena and entertainment district development. How much of a lead do you take here? Does this make you the quarterback for the provincial government?
Well, I am an Oilers fan, so right off the bat, so it is a little difficult for me. But all kidding aside, yeah, the $300 million is committed from Transportation and Economic Corridors, not specifically for the arena, but the development area around. So the roadways, construction leading into the new district, that will be covered by the province of Alberta. There's a $30 million deal for a community arena that'll be built beside the new Calgary Flames arena. But that'll come from municipal affairs. So that's the funding that we're giving as the provincial government to make sure that this development happens. And it's going to be a lot of work with the Mayor of Calgary and Council to make sure that we can make this deal a reality, and we can see not just great hockey down in Calgary finally, but also to be able to see lots of concerts and other things that Edmonton has been benefiting from Rogers Place that Edmontonians have been benefiting for quite some time.
Well, and speaking of Edmonton, should there be a reciprocal arrangement for the capital city? Does that land on your radar as well?
Well, Edmonton had a really interesting deal when they got their arena. of having a flexible zone so that the development of the arena and the businesses in there would get that benefit for extended period of time. It's a different deal that has now been struck with Calgary with direct funding from the provincial government. So at the end of the day, our two biggest cities in Alberta will have world-class entertainment district and arenas for people to enjoy, not just hockey, but for concerts and other shows. So it'll be pretty exciting for both Edmonton and Calgary. But Edmonton was first. They got a great deal and a great arena that, again, as an Oilers fan, it's always great watching Connor McDavid in that arena.
Okay, we'll try and squeeze in a few more here. Considerable emphasis in your mandate letter on rail connection, including commuter rail in and around the two big cities. How much do you aim to accomplish in this regard? What's a realistic target?
So we're in contact with CP and rail lines to make sure that we could, similar to out in Eastern Canada with a Metrolink line where you can have passenger rail on heavy commercial rail line. So obviously that logistics to make sure that you can actually have both running on the same track, as well as building new tracks. We have an agreement with Calgary to do a feasibility study to make sure that we can get from downtown Calgary to the airport. We're also in talks with the city of Edmonton to be able to connect Edmonton to its airport as well. So a lot of train mandate in this letter, as well as the use of hydrogen for locomotives going forward, something that in my own riding of Innisfil Sylvan Lake, there's a company there that is actually building hydrogen engines for CP today as we speak. They've built a handful of them and have a contract to build more. So lots going on in the train file and transportation, but we also want to make sure our roadways are maintained as well.
Well, roadways and I know regional airports falls in here too. Maybe real quick, what are you targeting there?
Sure. Something that we're kind of using the Red Deer Regional Airport as a model when we worked with them on how they could attract more investment, create more jobs in their area to be able to grow and expand their airport. And that's something that we're going to challenge all our regional and municipal airports as well to make sure that they can grow and expand to attract different types of jobs within their airport. Whether that's aircraft maintenance or other kind of cargo capacity that our regional and municipal airports could see. So really an economic development play that we're working with our airports to make sure that they can just provide great jobs to communities all across this province, because we don't have access to tidewater and water ports, but we do have access to airports. So we want to maximize that so that we can continue to grow our economy and make sure that there's great paying jobs here in Alberta.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there for time. Appreciate your time this evening, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Devin Dreeshen is Alberta's Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors.